Oh my goodness. Wait until you hear from my guest today on this week's episode of Straight Talk About Sales. Patty Farmer is an award-winning marketing and media strategist, coach, and consultant. She is also an international speaker, podcast host. I've been on her podcast, magazine publisher. I've been on her magazine. And a seven-figure event producer who's located in Dallas, Texas. Patty works with service-based entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, and speakers to identify their expertise, define their target buyers, and communicate effectively to attract and convert their ideal clients. Package their knowledge into products and services and position them in the marketplace to maximize sales. Patty is passionate about helping her clients begin the lifestyle they want to live so they can make a big impact in the world and even bigger deposits in their bank account, and to master their marketing, leverage the media, and monetize their business in a way that creates transformation for both them and their clients. To sum it up, Patty helps you make your marketing profitable, not painful. So I want you to tune into this episode. So many yummy gems and writer downers. You're probably going to have to listen to it more than once. Tune in. Welcome to another episode of Straight Talk About Sales. I am so excited to have with me our marketing and media strategist, Patty Farmer. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and Patty and I have had numerous conversations about marketing and sales and how they go together. So I'm so excited that she and I get to sit down today to chat about how to really power up your marketing so it's not painful, but it's profitable. And so before we dive into our topic, there's this one thing that I wanted to ask you, Patty, because in your bio, you talk about the pain and the profits when it comes to marketing. So one of my questions is, why does it seem that marketing is so painful for some and so seamless for others?
Well, that's such a great question. I think really honestly that it comes down to a lot of things that we do, which is being intentional. I think what makes it profitable is because you do it with intention, right? You have a plan, you have a campaign, you have a strategy, you know how to leverage, thus you monetize, versus people who, what I want to call spaghetti marketing, where they listen to every new thing they see on Facebook or Google, and then they throw it at the wall and they hope it sticks. Because here's the reality, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, is that we're not in the information business. Google is in the information business. We're in the transformation business.
Yes.
Right. And so I feel like, you know, how a lot of people, I see this a lot. My children are really bad at it. Oh, mom, I have this. I'm like, oh, really? Who told you that? Dr. Google? Right.
Ooh,
Because that's what we tend to do. So I think that the difference really in being profitable, making it painful, is because if you just want to go look at for marketing things, there's a million things. And it's be very painful trying to figure out which works, because the bottom line is they all work, but they might not all be the right one for you.
yes.
So it's really hiring and finding that right person who is going to give you the individualized marketing that meets your needs and the needs of your clients.
So good. So good. Thank you for that, Patty, because I see it all the time, as I'm sure you do. And I see it on the back end because I'm like, something's not right with this because of how the sales are going or the sales conversations are going. And then we need to make those necessary adjustments. But today we wanted to dig into power partners and how we can leverage those in our business and in our marketing. So I want you to just kick things off with, how do we identify power partners? Why would we leverage power partners? What are the power partners that we need? Like, let's just go wherever you want to start.
Okay. So first, one of the things that I always want to say is, what is a power partner, right? And I think if you ask most people, what they would say is somebody that they exchange referrals with, right? So I'm in marketing. And so somebody that I pass referrals with a lot is like a web designer, right? When I'm working with someone, really honestly, in marketing and in sales, what happens is when you solve a problem, it illuminates another one, right? Like you could hire someone for branding, or like, oh, well, now that I have my brand, I need to do marketing. Oh, well, now that I've done marketing, I need a website. Oh, now I need to know how to do sales, right? Like it illuminates another problem, which is kind of exciting though, right? Because you're going down the journey. But with that said, when you're passing referrals with somebody, some people it's really easy. It's like peanut butter and jelly, right? But then other times it's really not. And so what I like to say is if you have somebody that you pass referrals back and forth all the time because it just makes sense for what your industry is, that is a power partner. However, not everybody is a power partner. So today I'm going to share like 9 different power partners, why you need to have all of them. You should be building relationships with all of them. And if they're not a direct referral partner where it's somebody that you pass referrals all the time, if they're 3 of the 9, then they are a power partner. You do need all of them, but where you want to be intentional about spending your time should be determined by those things. And so I would say let's start, if you're ready. Where are the 4 ways that you identify who they are, right? So the first way are, what are the commonalities of past referral sources, right? So don't think about your clients, but think about, where do I get my referrals? Like, where has it been really easy for people to refer me business? And then think about, what are the commonalities that they have? Because that should be a clue for you who may be really, really great partners for you. So that would be one. One of them is that you serve the same market, but you do it in a completely different way. Again, website people or branding people, sales, I'm in marketing. We serve the same market, but we do it in a completely different way. The other one is we are in exactly the same business. Like we have the same business. They may be in marketing and I'm in marketing, but we serve a different market audience, meaning that we could both be in marketing, but maybe one of us likes to do startups, right? They like to really focus on startups, and somebody else likes to focus on established. Like for me, I don't work with startups. I work with people who are established. Usually they're kind of at $100,000 or more, or knocking on the door at least. But so it's different. So if I have somebody who comes to me and they are in a startup, I usually refer them to a partner that I may have, right? So our businesses are the same, but we have different markets. And then really the other one is really when who serves the decision maker before or after you. So again, who else serves your market, but they do it right before and right after you. Those are a really, really great market. So it's really thinking about who they are. So if you look at those 4 areas, that's going to be really good ways to identify who those power partners are. And now we can go into who they are.
Can I pause 1 second, Patty?
Oh yeah, I'm going to stop everyone because I know you're going to have questions with every single one.
This is so good. But one of the bigger questions, and I feel like people in the audience would have that, is it's great to know who they are, but how do you broach the conversation, right? How do you start that conversation around becoming power partners? Especially, I think one that might be tricky is when you do the same things, but you serve a different audience. So how do you start the conversation to help say, hey, how do we become power partners, and really position it to where it's a win-win-win?
Oh, that is a really, really great question. I'm going to answer it in with each one of them a little separately, but to be very specific to what you're saying, because I think somebody may want to know that. For example, one of the ways that I do it, I reach out some of my best partners are actually people who are in marketing. Marketing is a huge umbrella, as is sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge umbrella, and we don't all do every single thing. But it is true that if somebody is thinking about connecting with you, so this is actually going to be a teaching moment as well. I'm going to answer your question and have a teaching moment. Don't you love those?
I love those.
So if somebody is looking at LinkedIn and they send you a request, right? And you look at them and you look at their profile and you say, wow, they do the same thing as me. So you don't want to connect with them. Okay. That is like such a huge, huge mistake. And let me tell you why. Those are the people I reach out to the most because they do serve my market. So usually how I approach it, I'll send them a request and I say, hey, I see that you're in marketing as well. And you and I both know that marketing is a huge umbrella. What I would love to do is to get on a call and see where we may have synergy, but where there may be gaps that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you may be able to fill for my clients. And maybe I could do the same for you. Are you interested in having that conversation? Well, who wouldn't want to be, right? I
Right.
mean, we all have gaps in the places that we don't do every single thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for people to fill those gaps because here's what I think people should realize. Here's the good thing about working with people who do the same thing as you, but in a different way. They're going to be the most loyal. And you may not think so, but let me tell you why. They're going to be the most loyal because you're in front of their people all the time. And if
Mm-hmm.
you can't fill the need and you build a relationship with them and they're loyal to you, you're going to be passing them people all the time. And they're going to want to do it to you because they know that if you have that gap, if it's not them, who? So they're
Right.
going to want to be really, really loyal to you. So building a really good relationship with them is profitable and will not be painful.
I love that. That is so good. I love the way
Thanks.
you also shifted the perspective because I do think that there's that natural tendency sometimes to think, well, they do what I do. I'm trying to, keep all my clients over here. But like you said, they're in front of your ideal client all the time. And I love the emphasis on that loyalty because it just makes sense for
And
them.
I also think for me, when people talk about competition, right? Okay, do we have competition in the biggest sense of the word? I guess we do. I kind of believe your biggest competition is in the mirror. But
Hmm.
I really feel like it is never really about competition. It's about integrity. Either you have integrity or you do not have integrity.
So
I
good.
can't even tell you some of the things that I specialize in that other marketing people will come to me and say, you know what, Patty, my client really needs this. So doesn't it say more about them that rather than blowing smoke to their client and saying, oh yeah, I could help you with that too, that they say to their client, you know what, I know somebody else who's in the marketing business and I bring her in sometimes because she has this area of expertise. And I think that in this one area she can serve you. I have to tell you, I would have so much respect for somebody if they
Hmm.
did that. Now, when somebody does that and they reach out to me, I'm going to tell you that is the only thing I'm going to be discussing with that client is the thing they asked me to, because who is my client right now? The person they brought me to, or are they my client, right?
So
The
good.
person who's going
Yeah.
to come back to me over and over again. And so even if the person they send me like goes to my website and says, oh, I see that you do this too. I didn't know you did this. I would never, ever let them hire me because now I'm not in integrity and my word is more important than any transaction. So they are my client and they
Hmm.
asked me to serve their client. And my job is to do it to the best of my ability while I edify them and let them know that they're in really great hands and how great their marketing person is that they think enough of them to bring in somebody else when it's appropriate. So I have to tell you, it's an integrity issue. It is never competition.
That is so good and so true. And I
I think
think,
people don't always think about it though, right?
yeah.
I really feel it's super, super important. And when people know that, excuse me, and sometimes when I talk to marketing people, I tell them that because maybe they don't, or it's never happened to them. And so I like to let them know that. And they're like, really? And I'm like, absolutely. And I will
Mhm.
bring you in for, that's the conversation I want to have. What are those key things that you love to do? They bring you joy. You just happen to be really, really good at that specific thing. right? Maybe it's list building, or, it could be anything. Like, what
Right.
is your jam?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't need to reinvent ice cream. I tell people all the time, you don't need to reinvent ice cream. You just need to have your own flavor. And there are so many people who still like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the people that want hot fudge, and we want sprinkles, we want nuts. So are you hot fudge? Are you sprinkle? Are you nuts? What
A
are
little
you? Just
caramel.
be right. Just be your own unique flavor and align with other people who are also ice cream. Right. And
Yes.
then when somebody says, oh, I want a little bit of hot fudge, you're like, oh, I don't do hot fudge. Let me bring in somebody who does hot fudge. Right.
I love
So
it.
I think that that's really the way to have an abundance mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's a win-win for everybody.
I love it. It's so true. I love the emphasis on integrity over competition. Like that is, and it's true. It's so key.
Yep. I really feel like the way that I have built my business is lead with contribution and
Mm-hmm.
compensation will follow, right? But always lead with contribution because I
Yes.
think that sets the stage and people will rise up to it.
Yes. I love that. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's get into this next partner.
All right, let's do it. Okay. So the first one is what I call a social media partner. And what
Mm,
this is the easiest ask of all. And I always like to say, have you ever been on a call? All of you out there who are listening, you're on a call and you get to the end of the call and you're getting ready to wrap up. You have this little awkward period there because, like, what do we do now? Right. And you say, oh, well, I would really like to serve you. What could I do? Do you have an ask? What can I do? But you really don't know each other all that well, right? But you
mm-hmm.
kind of do. So, really, this is a super easy ask. And I'm going to tell you, there's two asks to me that literally, here's the way you answer that question on every single one of those calls, one of these. And it all depends upon where you are in your business as to which one. The first one, which is the best one, would be to say to somebody, say, oh, Patty, what could I do to serve you? And I would say, well, if you know any podcast hosts, I would love an introduction. I want to be on 100 podcasts this year. That's my goal. And if you
Mm-hmm.
know any podcasts, I would love an introduction. Now, notice I didn't say, can you get me on their podcast? Right. So
Right.
there's no
Mm-hmm.
guarantee I'm going to get on it. All I'm asking them to do is introduce me to the person. So literally
Mm-hmm.
all they got to do is send an email and say, such and such was asked for to be introduced to podcasts. I love your podcast. You're a great podcast host. Make them look great. Right. And then do the intro. I can take it from there. So
Yep.
I'm not asking you to guarantee. So that's an easy ask. Who doesn't know at least one podcast host, right?
Super easy.
So that's a super easy ask. But then here, social media partner, when somebody says it, that's why you should be intentional. This becomes intentional marketing. You should always know what
Mm-hmm.
your ask is going to be before you get on the call, or at least a few of them so you can do the one that's most appropriate. But a social media ask is super easy to have social media partners. That is pretty much somebody that you're just saying, listen, I'm not asking you to do anything, but could you share this post? Could you retweet this? I'm having a workshop. Would you just share it on social media? Not that big a deal.
Not a
Now,
big deal.
with that said, because most of my partners we have the same similar market. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm in marketing, and if somebody say did Reiki, I mean, I love Reiki, but I wouldn't really send something out to my audience because my audience would be like, what? You know what I mean? So if
True.
it's not appropriate, then don't do it.
Right.
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 But really you're serving your market. And is it something they may be interested in?
Mm-hmm.
So your audience will appreciate that. So the first one is a social media partner, super easy. You should have bunches of them. But if you're doing it for them and they know, oh, you know what, Patty, I was on this podcast and this is really good topic. Would you be willing to share it with your audience? Absolutely. Right. I'm having this workshop. Would you do it? Like when your book came out, Patty, like my book came out. Would you be willing to do a social media share? It's not that hard, right? It's super easy commitment to do, but make sure you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it for other people too. Not you, but if you're going to do that, make sure you do it for other
Yes.
people too. That's a social media ask. Now, a promotional partner, that's the second one. That is really when you're helping somebody with specific promotion. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people will say, I'm having a new book come out, or I'm having something come out. Do you want to be on the promotion team? And it's where
Mm-hmm.
you're committing to be part of a team where I know somebody, she does this podcast lab, and so she, reaches and has a whole team, and we all agree that in this short period of time, kind of like when somebody comes out with a book and they wanted to hit #1 that day, so we
Yep.
all agree that we're going to promote it on that day
Mm-hmm.
so that they make it to #1. So you're
Yep.
their promo partner, right?
Yeah.
Again, not all that hard. If people ask you for the date, make sure that you put it on your calendar, and you're just saying that on that date, that is what you're going to do, right?
Please put it
Not
on your
that hard.
calendar.
Right. Yes. Put it on your calendar. Okay. So these are pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is a content marketing partner. And a content marketing partner, this is really, I see this done on LinkedIn. It is done on Facebook too. I am going to say here that if you do this thing on LinkedIn, make sure you do it correctly, because there are some terms and conditions that LinkedIn has. I see it. Some people do it right, some people do it wrong. So make sure you're careful there. That was my disclaimer.
Okay.
That was my disclaimer. But like, for example, you can say, so say you're in sales, I'm in marketing, maybe we had somebody in branding, somebody in websites, so we're all serving the same market. And
Mm-hmm.
we would have a quote unquote pod where we would say, hey, on Thursdays, we're going to have a group. And on Thursdays, we're all going to put some content in there, and we're all going to agree that over the next week, we will all share that person's content. So, 20 people aren't all trying to do it the same day, which is
Right.
super obvious that you did that, right? But over the next week. So say, oh, well, we're going to do it every Thursday. And then you have until the next Thursday. And whatever you put in there, they're going to do it too. That's a really
Mm-hmm.
great way to have a content marketing partner. It's also another way somebody might do it is you could, like literally, you could have somebody who is going to do something on a blog. Maybe when you have a podcast, you are a content marketer that they're going to provide content for you in some
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really easy way to have content marketing, really, for somebody to help you with that. Also, another thing in content marketing, another teachable moment here, is you can create content or you can curate content. And a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
people get really confused with this. So, really, to the audience, very quickly, creating content is content you create. You wrote the blog. Curating content is where it's somebody else's content, and you're pretty much just endorsing it or giving your opinion, which really will make you go from expert to authority. So I suggest everybody not only have these partners, but you do it. And here's an example of that. So say Nadia posted something and said, here's the top 10 sales tips for 2022, for example. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
have that post. If you do, I'd love to see it. But anyway, so you have that post. Now I could literally be your partner, and I would just be your social partner. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, yes, would you share that, Patty? Absolutely. That'd be a great one. But if I was your content marketing partner, that would mean that I would promote it. But what I would do is I would say, oh, I love #3. #3, I am definitely adding that. #6, oh, I never thought to do that. But you're adding commentary that
Mm-hmm.
adds value to it. So you're endorsing it. Because I got to tell you, if you just saw it, there'll be people that say, oh, wow, top 10 sales tips, I want to read that. But as soon as
Right.
somebody that's an authority says, ooh, #3, or oh, this, they're like, oh, why does Patty think #3 is so good? Oh, now I have to read it. So it will get
Right.
more eyes on it when you have
Mm-hmm.
content marketing. So now you're saying, I want you to take a little bit of extra time, not
Mm-hmm.
just post it. I want you to actually add value to it, because you're an expert as well. And I want you to add value, which will actually endorse what I'm saying, but you actually get to kind of endorse you a little bit too. Does that make
I
sense?
love it. That makes sense. When would you want, because I think that we should talk about this one a little bit more, between creating your own content and then curating someone else's content, because you mentioned it takes you from expert to authority. So why would we want to switch or, be taken to authority? And then how do we be more
Okay,
intentional about including both?
sure. Okay, so first let me define what the difference is for somebody who might be saying, well, what's the difference, right? Now, I personally would like to believe that whatever it is that you do, you're an expert at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not, I'm going to definitely say you need to hire somebody. But, you should be an expert at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes you an authority is when you're an expert, but you are also able to influence other people's
Mhm.
decisions, specifically a purchasing decision, right? So you
Love
really
it.
want to have relationships with people who are an authority because people
Mhm.
listen to what they say. They're an influencer, right? And why you would want to do it. Well, for one, not everybody loves to blog. I don't blog at all. People are
Right.
like, really, Betty, you're a marketer? I'm like, yes, I made a decision several years ago that I hate to blog. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care what anybody says, you don't have to do every single thing. There are all kinds of muscles, and this is not one exercise that works that muscle. There's a lot of exercises you can do. And I
Right.
realized that I'm a speaker and I don't like to blog on demand. And so
Mhm.
5 years ago, I made the decision that I was going to stop blogging. And everybody was like, oh my goodness, Patty, you're not going to blog. Oh, that's going to hurt your business. So I just published a magazine instead. Now I only have to write once a quarter instead of
Right.
once every week. And I get to have a whole bunch of content marketing come in from experts that I feel will give great content, and
Right.
I get to promote them. So for me,
Mhm.
that became something that I wanted to do for something that I didn't like to do. So with that said, curating content is something I love to do because I'm very, very busy, but I am an expert
Mhm.
and an authority. So I would much rather than sit down and be like, what do I want to write about? Now, we're not talking about really good, juicy social media posts. I do those every single day, give lots of
Mhm.
value. So we're not talking about that, but we're talking about, really writing a blog about something. What I would rather do is let everybody else blog. And then I literally share it, add what I think I like, and sometimes never be negative, but sometimes I have, because here's what people will click on. They want to click on you saying how fabulous something is, or you saying, I'm going to think on that. They want to be,
Mhm.
it's a polarizing, right? You got to
Mhm.
get them curious. And so if I say, oh, I love 2 and 3 and 7, 9, hmm, I'm going to give some thought on that. Believe me, they're clicking that link right
Oh yeah.
now because they want to know, why does Patty Farmer not want to go about number 9? I didn't say it was
Right.
bad. I just said that I needed to think about how I was going to put that in my business or whatever. I have to tell you, and do you think the person who wrote that's going to be upset that 2,000 more people put eyes on their thing, right?
Nope.
Because just because I'm going doesn't mean everyone's going but that's kind of the thing. Here's what most people do: they look at an article or a blog, they copy the title, and then they put the link. They don't say anything about it. Well, we
Right.
could have did that on Google,
Right.
right? So say, what is it that made you post it? Use
Mhm.
your expertise. And you could do that more on somebody else's content, because you can't really get on there on yours and say, oh, number 3 and 7 and 6 I said are the most brilliant ideas you've ever heard. You should
They were fabulous
click
because I
this
wrote
link.
this.
Exactly, right? But man, it really gives you the opportunity. So I have to tell you, the best way to promote yourself is to promote other people. Hands down, it's the easiest and best way to do it. Not to mention, whoever that person is that you're tagging and saying that, what the law of reciprocity,
Mhm.
makes, there's just something about when people do things for us, we want to. Now, don't do it for that reason, but there is something about that, right?
Yeah.
So really, honestly, you can be really creative here. So does that make sense?
Yep, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for breaking that down.
No problem. So number 4 is an asset partner. And all of us need to think about what our assets are. Now, obviously, Nadia has a podcast, so that's one of her assets. I have a podcast as well, of which she's been a guest.
I have.
And actually, we got a lot of downloads on that too. So really, really great. And so think about what your assets are. So I have a podcast, I have a magazine, I do events. I mean, so there's a lot of reasons, but you don't have to do all those things yourself. If you're
Mhm.
building your network, like I'm showing you here, and you have these partners, your assets could actually be other people's assets.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of people share my magazine. It's free, right? It's a free
It's
resource,
amazing.
and they share. Thank you. Actually, you're in my current issue right now. And they will literally share it as a resource for people and say, oh,
Mhm.
do you get this magazine? And they give it as a resource. I have people who have it on their website. all kinds of stuff because it doesn't cost anything, but yet how beautiful they are to be thinking about them, to give that to them. So the assets don't actually have to be your assets, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
what you really want to be able to do is lead with those, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have all kinds. Now, here is probably going to be one of the biggest tips I'm going to tell you. And if you get nothing else out of what I say, this is the writer downer. Is this when you have assets, how you're going to do this is by looking at what other people do. So here's what I do. I don't share this all the time, but you and I are kind of like power partners ourselves. So I'm going to share. So, you know how every single day of your life on social media, in your email, whatever, somebody's having a virtual summit, somebody's speaking about something. I'm on so many email lists for that because I want to get them,
Mm-hmm.
because I like looking at who all the speakers are. But what I
Mm-hmm.
like looking at is what are the freebies they're giving away.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, are they a good partner for me? What kind of assets do they got?
Right.
I want to
Right.
know what kind of assets so that I can get to know them. So that when I'm talking to people that I think need that asset, I
Mm-hmm.
actually have a spreadsheet that I keep everybody and their assets on. And whenever I see somebody need something, I just go, oh, let me do an intro for you. And then when I'm doing so, if I was doing an intro for you, Nadia, and I said, oh, I want to introduce you to XYZ, whatever, because she was really looking about for some stuff about sales. And I told her about your podcast and I put the link in there, right? So you see that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just shared with her that about your book and told her how she needs to get your book, but I would just really like to introduce you. So, first of all, would I not be a rock star that I did that, right?
Total rock star.
Total rock star. And not only that, but then wouldn't you literally, that person would think, wow, this was really nice of her too. Now, of course, they really want to get to know you because I just told them all these things about you. And then you probably want to do something nice for me too and say, oh, wow, Patty's magazine's coming out in a couple of weeks. I should let me promote her magazine, because we
Yes.
naturally want to do things for other people who do things for
Mm-hmm.
us, right? We
Absolutely.
live in a world where everybody's me, that when we meet
Mm-hmm.
people who aren't that we want to develop relationships with them, right?
Yes.
Which
Mm-hmm.
leads me now, for those of you, I've done a lot of quotes since I've been on here because I open my mouth and they're all original too, but I can't help myself. But here's one that I will tell you that I think is really important. When you meet somebody, you haven't had any conversation with them yet, they're not really a connection because you haven't connected. They're just a
Mm-hmm.
contact. But the only way that you're going to go from being a contact to a contract is the R. That's the only difference. And that R stands for relationship. So the only difference between
Yes.
a contact and a contract is the R, and the
The
R stands for
R.
relationships, right? It's all
Girl.
about the R.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really what is really important, because people talk all the time about looking for ops, like, oh, I need some speaking ops, I'm looking for this. But op for me stands for other people's people. What can I do for somebody? Because really, honestly, again, best way to promote yourself is to promote other people,
Yep.
right? I mean, being on a podcast, you're in front of however all those people that maybe you don't know any of, right? And that's why
Mm-hmm.
when she was on mine, she was so gracious that, oh, Patty, thank you for having me on my podcast. Would you like to come on my podcast? Because we had a similar market,
Mm-hmm.
right? So really always be thinking about that. You got to have a bigger mindset and expand in the conversations that you're having of what kind of assets. And again, the assets don't have to be yours. Oh my gosh, I have a friend and I was on this podcast and I think you'd be a great guest, whatever that case may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also like to promote and market the things that I'm on. So here's kind of another tip for me, which is this podcast. So I am a really good podcast guest for no other reason. Well, one, I'd like to think I give good value, but the other
Lots of great
reason,
value.
but I really know how to promote because I do
Mm-hmm.
marketing, right? So here is a tip. If I want to be on somebody's podcast, so for any of you out there that want to be on somebody's podcast, now we're not talking like Oprah, we're talking about like a micro influencer, right? And you want to be on theirs, here's the way you get on whatever podcast you want. And here's what we do. One, you listen to their podcast so that you really know what their podcast is about.
Right.
Right? That's the first thing. Second thing, when you reach out, you want to be able to tell them, oh, I really loved your episode of where you had, Susan, yada, yada, yada. And I really love the part where she talked about this. So now they know you really listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say, I really feel like I would love to continue that conversation because I feel like I could add this to that conversation.
Ooh,
And I would really love that. So now you're telling them what's the value you're going to bring to their audience.
this is
And
gold.
I always say, and I loved that episode so much, I've already left you a review because you did. And then what I do that solidifies it, when you do a review, you may not know this, but well, I know you probably do, but not everybody. But when you leave a review, it sometimes takes 24 to 48 hours to show up. So if they
Mm-hmm.
go and check and they don't see it, they're like, liar, right? That was funny. But really, what I do is before I hit submit, I copy and paste it into that thing and say, I already left you a review. I know it may take 24 to 48 hours to show up, but I wanted you to know that I left it. And then they see that I actually did. Within 48 hours, I'm booked. Like that's
So
just how it is.
juicy. Write all of that down.
That's right. I'm booked. And then here's the second thing about promotion. As long as I've gone that far, here's the other thing. I do this thing that I call, and it's what I teach my clients, so I'll share. And usually they pay me for this, so I'll tell you. But one of the things that I do is I do this thing called the sandwich method. Because here's the thing, it's about leverage. That's what I teach in marketing. It's not everything you do once. It's like when you're a speaker, you get to the place you're speaking at, you take a picture of it empty, and you're like, oh, I'm so excited to be here tomorrow. And I'm just envisioning blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the before. Then when you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking, now you're talking about speaking. After it's over, you tell us about what the audience thought and the great conversation you had. Like you don't just promote it one time. You don't get on a podcast and go, oh, it was really, really nice. I'm excited that I got to be on your podcast. Thank you. Well, that isn't as well for the host, but really, you really drop the ball on promoting yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
share some tips that you did and start sharing that and talking about that. But the sandwich method is this. So, say, for example, you were episode number 55.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I'm episode number 55. I share it. I say how fabulous the host is, yada, yada, yada. What did I share and how I love being on that podcast? Okay, now 2 weeks go by. So I put it on my calendar. 2 weeks go by, and I go look for that episode page where I was episode 55. And what I do is I look at that. Now, this is really like, because for most people, like all my guests talk about marketing, right? That's why my
Mm-hmm.
show is a Marketing Media Money. Yours is about sales, whatever. So I'll look. So I know that if they're on there, they're similar to what I'm going to talk about. That's why they had them on their podcast and me. So if I'm 55, I go look and see who's 54 and who's 56. And then I
Mm-hmm.
go connect with them. And then when I promote episode 54 and I promote episode 56, not at the same time, two separate times.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I do that? Here's why. Because when people go to that episode page and see 54 that I just promoted, what are they going to see? They're going to see episode
Episode
55,
55.
where I was the very next person. And they're going to say, wow, look at that. She promoted episode 54. Now, the person who's episode 54, who doesn't even know me, probably, or maybe does, is like, wow, how nice of Patty to promote my episode. I should probably do the same thing for her. So now they're going to promote episode 55, and none of my people know that person. They just put me in front of all their people. See how
Yep.
this works?
Yep. Oh,
That
so
only
good.
takes like 5 or 10 minutes, but it's a marketing strategy that really works.
Really works. So
Okay.
good.
All right, we'll move along faster because we could run out of time before
We
we
could,
get to the end.
it's so good. This is like a master class.
I know. I actually do these master classes actually. Okay. So number 5 is a collaboration partner. And a lot of times people think that collaboration partners and JV partners are the same, but they are not.
Mm.
So a collaboration partner is somebody that you're collaborating with, like maybe you're doing a webinar together or something like that. No money's exchanged, doesn't cost any money. You're just collaborating on something together. Maybe you're
Mm-hmm.
going to co-brand something. Maybe you're going to, like I said, do a webinar together. That's really collaboration. And sometimes it's something like, for me, I'm in marketing. I don't like to write copy. I love copywriters because they usually don't market very good. Not always, but a lot of times. Because the reason why they write copy, they're behind the scenes. They don't want to be in
Mm-hmm.
the front. And they're great. They're great power partners for me. I'll do all the marketing. You write the copy, and then we'll be on a webinar together. So find your strengths, Find the
Yeah.
things that are not your strengths, not your weaknesses, but not your strengths. And those are a good collaboration partner for you
I
to do
love
and
it.
get to the marketplace faster. Next is a bonus partner. A bonus partner is really, really great to have because a lot of times when you're launching a program, you need to ask yourself, what would it make it nice and juicy that if I'm have this program and it's all about marketing, what else would they might want to know? And you should have partners who are going to be bonuses for you. Now, this
Love
is
it.
never one-on-one time. It's usually things that they already are giving away, or it's a 3 video mini course or something they
Mm-hmm.
already did. They've already done the time, they've already done it. So basically all they're going to do is give you the link. Doesn't require any work on their part. But when people are going to buy your $9.97 program, a lot of times people will buy because they want those juicy bonuses.
Bonuses.
So
Yes.
have bonus partners. That's really important. And it's really good, like for a book. Like, really, honestly, when people are going to come out with a book, saying if you want to become a bestseller that one day, having bonus partners so that people say, if you buy my book on this day, these are my partners, and they're going to give you all these bonuses. And that's really a great way
Juicy.
to do that.
Yes.
So that's number 6. Number 7 is a prize partner. And it's kind of similar, but not exactly. I have a lot of prize partners, people who do have books, who do have downloadable things. I really like tangible things for this though, because a lot of times you're at a vendor show, or a lot of times you're networking or whatever, people have books. And you're like, would you be willing to give me a few books that I can give as door prizes,
Mm-hmm.
whatever? And really, honestly, you're not even at that event, but I'm giving away your book, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's really good to have somebody be a prize. This is my prize because this is really a great book, and yada yada yada. You should actually send me a few. But but anyway, it makes sense when you books is really a great way, to be able to do that. Then
Love
number
it.
8 is a JV partner. So a joint venture partner, similar to a collaboration partner, but there's money involved. So it could be you guys decide to put an event on together. It could be some small, but you're combining funds to pay for whatever it costs. So you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it joint, and you're splitting the cost, but you're also splitting the profit and stuff. So you don't have to do it all by yourself. This is really a great way to do it if you've only done it 1 or 2 times. So it's not so risky for you because you're not doing all the costs yourself.
Right,
So
right.
that's really a JV partner. That's number 8. And number 9 is really a referral partner, the truest sense of the word of what I said earlier in the beginning. Somebody who's so similar to you that if they need you, they need them. And it's really easy. It's somebody that you pass back and forth referrals all the time. But now that I've told you the other 8, you can see if you can find somebody who can be 3 of those things for you. So
Yes.
they're like, oh, yeah, I'll do your bonus, Patty. Yes, we can collaborate on things. And yes, we can do assets together. Oh, and I will promote you on social media too for easy things. Like, now they are really a power partner. So a power partner does not have to be somebody who people can serve you in a lot of ways that may or may not be just giving you a referral. Like, as
Right.
some of those things that I said, I mean, you could make a lot of money doing some of those things that nobody ever gave you a referral.
Mm-hmm.
So don't
Mm-hmm.
always be thinking about, I got to find referral partners. You should have some of all 9 of these partners to be profitable.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I don't know how many people are gonna have to go back and play this over and over again. There were just so many juicy gems that you shared, and I really appreciate it because I agree. 3 out of the 9 partners can be a game changer for someone's business, their marketing. And like you said, and like we talked about in the beginning, to go from painful to now profitable, right? Like, it's
Right.
just such simple tweaks. And so, oh my gosh, this was so good. So, Patty, before we wrap up, please, please, please share additional resources, how people can connect with you, because I know people are going to have follow-up questions. They probably need to come to
Okay.
one of your master classes.
Perfect. So the first thing I want to do is I want to gift everybody actually a lifetime subscription to the magazine. And actually, this issue right there, you're in that issue, so they should read that. So to do that, they would just go to www.marketingmediamoney, no and, just marketingmediamoney.com, and they will get that. The thing I would really love to also give them is I have an assessment, a marketing media money assessment. But what I love about the assessment, the thing that people tell me about it all the time, is if you never speak to me again, some assessments are really so that they're selling, right? This one
Mhm.
isn't that. This is total value. It will really tell you, oh, wow, I'm doing those really, really good. Here's what I might need a little tweaking, and here's what steps are that'll get me massive results. Again, whether you ever contact me or not contact me, it will be super value, and it's an eye opener. And that's www.m3, which also stands for Marketing Media Money. So m3bizquiz.com. So m3bizquiz.com. And anything else, they can just, everywhere else, you can just find me on my website, pattyfarmer.com.
I love it. Thank you, Patty. This was so good. I'm going to go back and listen to this myself and take some more notes. So many gems, so many writer downers. I thank you for just being so generous with your expertise because, yeah, and this is why I invited you to be on the podcast. I knew it was going to be a great episode. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you so
any
much.
final words before we wrap up?
I would just say that I think that if there's anything I would like to say is to try to think bigger, right? You know, everybody you meet has the potential to be one of these partners. And sometimes we can get tunnel vision, really. And so I think what's really important is, you know, there's this cliche. I don't really love cliches, but there's a cliche that says it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it does, it takes a tribe to build a business. So
Mm-hmm.
build your tribe, right? I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, right? So for me, I really selective. I'm very intentional and stuff. And I invite you to be intentional too. Ask yourself, why am I doing it? And where did they fit? Could they be a partner? You know, and how can I help them to become a power partner? And the best way to do it is to become a power partner for other people, right?
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Patty. Thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Straight Talk About Sales. We'll see you soon.